Okay, so we are looking at different choices that we want to make along this journey of uh, arriving at the final configuration of what the model should look like, right? And the first step there is to train. What they did is pre-train and fine-tune a baseline model. And this model is not the final model that we'll use, hence it's the baseline model, right? And just to allow us to do some of the systematic studies that we want to do, right? So this was a basic encoder-decoder model, like the BERT model, right? So encoder-decoder, and it takes a corrupted span and it tries to generate the entire sequence, right? And it allows us to use different types of pre-training objectives, as we will see. The baseline model had 12 encoder layers. So this is like one encoder layer, as you know. So there were 12 such encoder layers and 12 decoder layers, right? So that was in spirit similar to BERT base. Why do I say in spirit? Because the BERT base is only an encoder model, right? So if you have, it had 12 layers, but this has 12 layers in the encoder and 12 layers in the decoder, right? So as you can imagine, it in terms of number of parameters, it will be roughly 2x of what the BERT base model was, but the number 12 is similar, right? So that's why I say in spirit, right? And we'll do this exact comparison of how much larger it was than compared to BERT base, and how do you say that these two models are equivalent or not, and how do you make them equivalent if you want to do a fair comparison, right? So that all those discussions will come. Right now, we're just looking at what the model looked like, and it has 220 million parameters, as I said, twice the number of BERT-based parameters. Okay, and it was trained using the denoising objective. So, what is the denoising objective? So, you have this input, which is the original text. You sort of have these continuous spans, right? So, this is two words, a span of two words. This is a span of one word. This is again a span of two words. You could even have larger spans of three words and so on. You're going to sort of corrupt them. So this will not be a part of your input text. So your input text would look like what sets this, some sentinel here, like means some placeholder there is the pivotal role of artificial, again some placeholder there, and then again some placeholder, right? And the model has to generate whatever was the missing part for each of the placeholders, right? So this is the output format. W, mission apart, X is intelligent, and Y is critical descent, and Z to indicate that, okay, I'm done now. There is no more missing text that I need to predict, right? So this is the how they constructed the input, the training data, right? So this is what the input would look like. This is the target that the model has, and you will measure sort of the cross entropy for every token here, right? Did you generate W at this point? If you generated anything other than W, then you'll get a penalty. After generating W, did you generate mission? If you generated anything else, then you'll get a penalty, right? So that's what the denoising objective is. And one advantage of this objective is it reduces the training time, because you're not generating the full sequence at the output, and you're also not giving the full sequence at the output, right? So whatever at the input, because whatever spans you're corrupting, you're just replacing them with single sentinels. So even if this was two words that you had skipped, you're just producing one sentinel here, right? So the input sequence is smaller, and at the target also you're not generating the full output, but just the relevant pieces which were missing in the input, right? So that's why it makes it easier to train it. So this is the denoising objective as compared to the masked language modeling objective, or as compared to the causal language modeling objective. It was the causal language modeling objective. I would have had to generate all the tokens, but here I'm just generating the noised out tokens, right? So that's the difference. Okay, so at the time of pre-training, you have many such sequences. So you have the, suppose you are training this on the entire Wikipedia corpus, then every sentence from Wikipedia with the appropriate corruption would be your input, and the output would be to generate that corrupted part in the format that we saw on the previous slide, right? So there were 5 and 2, the context size was 5 and 2. So each sequence, each this green block, which is one sequence, had 5 and 2 tokens, and the batch size was 128, right? So the number of training steps that they used was 2 raised to 19. So remember, one of the questions that we had asked is one model better than the other model because it was trained for longer, right? So they're going to keep this number of training steps as constant as 2 raised to 19, which is just like 500,000 training steps, right, roughly. The total number of tokens that they had was 2 raised to 19 into 2 raised to 16, right? So what does that mean is that If you look at the batch size, which was 128, right, which is 2 raised to 7, and no, sorry, this would be 7, yeah, correct. And the number of tokens in every sequence was 5 and 2, right? So let me just do this, write this computations here. So this is 2 raised to 9, and this is 2 raised to 7. So one step was actually equal to 2 raised to 9 into 2 raised to 7, which is equal to 2 raised to 16 tokens, right? So that we're seeing 2 raised to 16 tokens in one step, and it is doing a total of 2 raised to 19 such steps. Hence, the total number of tokens that it is seeing during training is 2 raised to 35, which is 34 billion, right? And this is actually smaller than the total number of data, total amount of data that they had, right? That at if you remember that number, I'll just show you that number again. Yeah, this is just a fraction of the data because the total amount of data was actually much larger. BERT was trained on 137 billion tokens. This is only 34 billion tokens. Remember, this is not the final model, right? We're just trying to sort of keep some things fixed at a reasonable level so that we can do a lot of experiments, right? So that was the idea. And they of course had much more training data than this, but they said that we'll just keep it as this 34 billion tokens is what we'll use for training across all the different options that we want to consider, right? And Roberta and BERT, which were the earlier encoder-only models, were actually trained on much larger amount of data, right? So it is important to understand this computation. So I'll just repeat that you're going to train for 2 raised to 19 steps. Each step, it sees these many tokens, right? The batch size into the number of tokens per element in the batch. So 5 and 2 multiplied by 128, which is 2 raised to 16, and then that multiplied by the total number of steps, so that gives you 34 billion tokens, right? So that is the amount of training data that the model is going to see, and this we are going to keep it constant across all the choices that we evaluate, right? Yeah, and that's the idea, right? That we have more data, but 34 billion is a reasonable size to experiment with. My experiments are not very costly, and at the same time, the data is also not very small that I cannot learn anything meaningful from those experiments. Okay, so context length, batch size, number of tokens per batch we have computed, and number of training steps, then the total number of pre-training tokens, all of this we have computed. The optimizer that they used was ADA factor, just one choice that they made. And the learning rate scheduler was the inverse square root scheduler, so which is 1 over square root of max of n comma n, where n is the training step and k is the warm-up steps, right? So what does this mean? That if you have chosen the warm-up as 10 raised to 4, okay, so up to 10 raised to 4, your step, the max of this quantity, where n is the step number, right, the current step number, that would be less than 10 raised to 4 up till you reach 10 raised to 4 steps. So the max here would just be 10 raised to 4. So your learning rate would be 1 over square root of 10 raised to 4, right? That means you have this constant learning rate for the first 10 raised to 4 steps, which is 1 over square root of 10 raised to 4, which is 1 over 100. So this would just be 0.01, right? So for the first 10 raised to 4 steps, your learning rate would just be 0.01. And after that, it would be inversely proportional to the step size, right? So when your, say the step number is 10 raised to 6, and now the max of 10 raised to 6 and 10 raised to 4 is going to be 10 raised to 6. So at that time, your learning rate would be 1 by square root of 10 raised to 6, which would be 1 by 10 raised to 3, which would be 0.01, right? So when you are at the 10 raised to 6th step, your learning rate is going to become 0.01. So it's sort of exponentially decaying, right? Inverse square root, decaying as the square root of the step size, right? Inverse square root of the step size. So that's what is happening here. That's what this max means, and that's what this proportional to inverse of the square root means. That means larger the step size, smaller is the learning rate that is going to be, and it's going to decay with this square root. Okay. Fine. So far, so good. So let's go ahead. Yeah. So again, during fine tuning, and we'll come to that, the batch size would remain the same. Okay. So this is what you're going to do in free training. They use the C4 dataset, which was much larger than 34 billion tokens, but they're only going up till 34 billion tokens. and they're going to use this baseline model, right, which is just 220 million parameters. It is BERT based like because it has 12 layers in the encoder, all the model, demodel size, everything, right? All of those are the same as what was there in the BERT based model. Hence, I'm calling it BERT based like. It's of course not BERT based because BERT based is an encoder only model and this is an encoder decoder model. But all the choices were similar to what was there in the BERT based model, and they used the denoising objective, which we just saw, and they did this for 2 raised to 19 steps, where in each step they saw 2 raised to 16 tokens. Right? Okay, and then during fine tuning, they do another 2 raised to 18 steps, which is 17 billion tokens. So what does that mean? Is that if they have all of these data sets, right? So each of these data sets, there are like tons of such data sets available. These data sets are typical NLP tasks like entailment, sentiment analysis, question answering, natural language inference, and all of these, right? So there were many such data sets available at that time. One of them was text summarization, question answering, and then translation, right? So all of these data sets. So if you look at the number of instances in these data sets, right, so you would have a certain number of tokens. And remember now all of this is the same objective as what you're using at training time, right? So that's why you can again talk of these in terms of tokens. So suppose you had the translation task, you are given an English sentence which say had 5 words, and then you wanted to translate it to Roman in this case, or I don't know which language, I think Russian, say, suppose you want to translate it to, and it again is say 5 tokens, right? Uh, so now you could again just think of this as your objective is that you're given this, then you have corrupted this, so this is what your sentinel is, and you're given this prefix which says translate to Russian, right? And then you have the English sentence, and then this is the denoising part, right? So you have corrupted the Russian part, and then the model has to predict the Russian part, right? So again, it's exactly the same as what you were doing at the time of pre-training. So this, now here you could look at it that suppose translate to Russian, so 3 tokens, the input sentence 5 tokens, and then the translation whatever it is, say 5 tokens. So then you can say that this is 13 tokens. So that's how these 17 billion tokens you are counting, right? So you're going to train over multiple iterations, and this is when you are looking at this sentence, you have seen 13 tokens. So if you sum up the tokens along all of these and then multiply it by the number of times you're going to go over the entire data set, so that number was 17 billion tokens, right? So that's how you can make this computation. Yeah, so pre-training, then fine-tuning, and the main point here is that fine-tuning has exactly the same objective as pre-training, which is the denoising objective, where you just, whatever is the answer, you make that as the sentinel, and then you have to predict that sentinel at the output. Okay, fine. Um, Okay, and there were task-specific evaluation matrix that they use. You evaluate it on the validation set. So you're training for some 2 raised to 18 steps. So after every say 1 lakh steps or 10,000 steps, you would keep checking the performance on the corresponding task on the validation set, and then choose the best model for reporting the performance, right? Whichever model gave the best performance, right? Okay, so now they did this, and then this star here is the baseline model, which is what they trained. And what they did is that they did this 10 times. So they started with a scratch configuration. That means there are these 220 million parameters in the model which are randomly initialized. Now you did the pre-training for 2 raised to 19 steps. Then you did the fine tuning for 2 raised to, what was that, 18 steps, right? And then you got the final model that you evaluated on all of those tasks, and this is the performance that you got. And then they compared it to what would have happened if you had just taken the model, there is no pre-training, right? And you just did the fine tuning on the data set that you had. Then of course the model with pre-training was doing much better, and they've also reported the standard deviation, right? Because they did 10 different runs to make sure that the initialization does not matter, right? Yeah, and this baseline model without, so nothing surprising here. As you can see, the pre-training helps, at least for these tasks where the amount of training data was less. For the translation task, they actually had a lot of training data, and in that case, the pre-training was not really helping much, right? And in fact, in one case, it was actually detriment, right? So that is what their observations were, that pre-training largely helps, right? So that at least has been established, right? Um, okay, okay. But then, what is the new thing that we have learned here, right? So let's see. So before that, BERT, this was again around the same time, not same time, this is a bit later, but yeah, the BERT model was already there, right? And they had already shown that large scale models trained on large amount of data helps. And actually, they had achieved quite good numbers on the SQuAD and the MNLI dataset, right? So SQuAD, they had achieved 80.8, whereas this was 80.88. And then on the MNLI dataset, which is not listed here, they were 84.4, right? And as compared to them, the baseline model which these guys train, the scores were 80.88 and 84.24, right? So not too much of a difference, right? So is this model comparable or not comparable? We cannot directly compare because the BERT-based model was actually trained on much larger amount of data as opposed to what this model was trained on. Right? And now we would want to do this comparison. The BERT-based model was an encoder-only model. It had 12 layers. It had a certain number of parameters. It was trained for a certain amount of time. Can we do a fair comparison where everything kept constant? How does this baseline model that they had trained compare to the BERT based model? So that's what we are going to do, and we're going to different experiment with different architectures now. So I'll end this video here, and then we'll come back and talk about how they went about doing this comparison.